about this research that Megan and myself have been doing with support from Amy and also Nicole Reichelt from the University of Melbourne. And we've been looking at mapping the extension capability of the Golden Valley fresh pear sector. I'd just like to acknowledge the data set that we used for this piece of work. And in 2013, Samantha Longley and Eloise Seymour had collected a very significant data set on pear growers. And to avoid the inevitable fatigue that growers and others have when researchers like myself go back and ask for more information, we looked at this data set and felt that there was enough there for the exploratory nature of this project to remine it. And that's what we did, and we were very grateful to be able to access that data. So just as an overview of what we were attempting to do, we were using social network analysis to look at the advisory networks of the pear growers. And to set up a social network analysis, we need relational questions, because it's not so much a method to look at anything about the individuals themselves, although that's also important, but it's about the relationships. And in this particular case, what are the relationships about who is sharing information with who? And it's important to know where growers are getting information from, as well as who they are connecting with to provide information to. As I say, the methods involved in this project, as it was social research rather than technical scientific research, but it drew on this existing data set, as I've said, and also involved some new interviews, one in particular with a marketing manager from this area who's involved in one of the leading pack houses, and several industry experts that were there to support what we were finding and to collaborate and give new ideas. Basically, it's a mixed methods approach which uses social network analysis and analysis of the qualitative data. Part of that was 3 grower case studies, which I'll mention very quickly, and as I say, that marketing manager case study. So drawing on the data from the data set, there were 25 growers involved in that project, and looking back through that data, those relational questions, who do you talk to and who gives you information, we then looked at what relationships were occurring. So where you see a dot in that graph, that's an individual or an organisation, and the growers themselves are the black dots on the sort of outer ring, if you like, of that model there. And the connections that they mainly have are shown in that core of the network diagram. Some of this is it is a model, and I point that out because social network analysis is a very powerful visual tool, but it's only indicative of certain trends, and particularly drawing on a borrowed set of data. There are certainly limitations to it, and one of the limitations, I think, was apparent to us in the data, where you see an isolated node right at the top there, and I think if we had actually talked to all of these people specifically with those 2 relational questions, we would certainly have found somebody that growers talking to and is sharing with. But nevertheless, there were some clear overall trends coming through, and for anybody who would like to have access to this, to spend more time looking at that network, there's the key that goes with that to identify the different players. But here it's been generalised to identify, well, who are the most used sources of information? And the largest dots in the centre of the diagram are the sources that are most used by growers from this data set. And it starts with media. And media of all kinds that growers are accessing: the internet, local news, journals, newsletters, all sorts of media that come through government sources, commercial sources, and of course it's the flexibility and over time it's the trust that growers place in particular sources. They're using them, and that was very apparent in the data. The second most accessed information source is the grower they talk about themselves and their experience, and that they draw on that on a very ongoing basis. But as well as that, they have very close contacts, and by that I'm talking about their family members that work with them on orchards, and staff if the orchard is big enough, and very close neighbours who they're interacting with, or those that they do interact with. And then other growers, and distinguishing between very close neighbours and other growers is the experience that growers have going to discussion groups, formal and informal kind of arrangements between growers. It was a little surprising to me to find that growers talk a lot about their own travel, and this is self-initiated opportunities that they look for to go places, to learn what's happening in other areas, and not just in Australia, but they go overseas and invest a lot of time and money and effort in doing that. Of course, the markets and industry are also important sources, but obviously markets for more specific, targeted market information, and industry, and by that those groups are APAL, Fruit Growers Victoria. Those are the key ones that came up. A lot of this is strategic information that comes through. It comes through from various research projects that have been initiated by industry, and also perhaps a little bit surprising, because this project was focused on advisory capability, who I was actually talking to. But advisors, as you can see, is quite a large dot still, but up in the left-hand inner part of the core there. Turns out in this set of data at least that advisors are used by only 20% of the sample of growers, and by that I mean private consultants. And when growers are using a private consultant, they're also using a broad range of other sources of information as well. So they're not just relying on a consultant, but they are part of this bigger mix. As well as in this particular group, we have, yes, growers are still looking for support by government, and here I'm talking about Tatura and this organisation. But with the challenges ahead of the pear industry at the moment, plant breeders and nurseries and those sources of information are really quite vital to the growers as well, because that's where the future lies, to emerge out of the shadow of Packins and Williams and those other current and rather dated varieties. And of course to align with the Asian tastes and markets. So the key points from the case studies, I won't dwell on this because I think I'm going to run out of time if I did, but all of the growers have different aspects to what is important to them, and most of them, when they seek information, are looking for specific solutions for specific issues that they're facing. Generally speaking, when they're in that need to find information, they're proactive information seekers, but they're very reliant on their relationships and their networks, and who they know and who they perceive as being credible for what they need to know. This development of relationships is something that takes time, money and energy, and so by recognising that these relationships are important for information sharing, it highlights just that understanding that growers have of the people-to-people connection in supporting their business. And certainly, as I say, this need to access plant material which is going to take their orchards profitably into the future is a big issue for most growers at the moment. And we looked at a particular pear growers, the pear marketing managers network, but there's arrows that are pointing into the marketing manager, who's the black node right in the centre, and those are the nodes there that seek information from the marketing manager, so they're going to him all the time to find out what's going on. Packaging companies, freight forwarders, staff, grower clients, and domestic logistics companies. And then his role is to be a source of information. He's a key broker in this network, so he needs to be going to a whole range of sources: APAL, digital, import agents, international logistics. He's involved in his own travel, which is mainly funded rather than growers who self-fund that kind of activity, and so on. He's very clear when he talked to us that his network underpins his ability to do business. And the fact of this particular marketing manager means that within his network, as I say, he's a broker, he's one of those key connection points, but he's also unique. So if he leaves that network, anybody going in to replace him isn't immediately going to be able to pick up all those strands, that they will also have to spend time developing those relationships. And again, this takes time and money. Well, we looked at the strengths and weaknesses of the network, and we looked at what we need to do to strengthen that, and networking opportunities, that's the main point there, and tailoring information strategies to what the growers really prefer, how they prefer to receive information. And part of this whole project was to create an opportunity for researchers at the University of Melbourne and Digital to start forging relationships that would be a foundation for future research. So that was what we did, and we really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.